In the previous video, we actually looked at setting up our team data. We also set up assets and our splash screen. So this was the asset and every other thing, right? So if you notice too, in our last video, I added this multi-provider, right? And when I try to run the app, I am getting this error because when you're using multi-provider and the providers, you need to register at least one provider, right? But as you can see, we have an empty list. That's why this error is showing on the right side. So to kickstart, I'm going to start the onboarding screen. Okay, we are going to build the onboarding because we already have the splash screen in place, right? We are going to build the onboarding. And as for this folder structure, there are some things I need to do, but I need to create a source because I need to move all these things to make it cleaner. So for the settings, right, the search, root screen, onboarding, home, all these ones, okay, I'm just going to move them into this source directory, okay, so to make everything cleaner. All right, so we have our config, we have our shared, we have our styles, we have our source that has all our screens. Okay, so now I'm going to start the onboarding, but before I do that, we need to fix this error, right? So what I'm going to do, I'll go to the source and where we have our onboarding, okay, inside providers, I'm going to create a new file, okay, and I'm going to call this provider.dat, and this is going to be our onboarding provider where we are going to create our provider, right, that will handle onboarding. So inside here, I'm going to create a class and I will call it onboarding provider. Okay, and it's going to extend change notifier because we are using provider for this. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go to our main.dat and register this so we'll stop seeing this error. Okay, right here, I'm going to create a change notifier provider. Okay, like so. All right, I think this is not how it's okay. We need to remove this. Cool. All right, so save it. You see now the error is gone, and now we are having this error. So I just have to do like a hot restart here to see if that fixes it. And let's okay. I think in our config, if you go to routers, we have not created the builder for the router. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to create that path for the splash screen. So we have our go route. Initial route is this. So inside the route, I'm going to create a new go route, okay, and the path is going to be the first path, and I will have a builder for it. Okay, so inside here, I'm going to return the splash screen that we created. Okay, save it, and we can now see the splash screen if I run it, right, because this is pointing to the initial screen. Awesome. So we have our splash screen now showing correctly and perfect, no issues. But now I want something else to happen. You know, after like 3 seconds, we need to navigate the user into the onboarding screen, right, so that we can see what we are doing. But later on, when we add authentication, we are going to check if the user is valid, if the user has authenticated or not, and then take them to the right places. So now to go back to the onboarding. So inside here, I'm going to create onboarding screen. I'm going to register a new router, and I'm going to call this one onboarding. Okay, onboarding screen. Okay, let's just call it onboarding screen. Yeah, and here I'm going to change the path to onboarding. Okay, cool. Now it has not been created, right? So we are going to go back to our onboarding screen here, and inside here we're going to create a new screen and say onboarding home. Right, home screen .dat. So inside here, we're going to create a new stateful widget, and that stateful widget is going to house our onboarding screen. So let's have a stateful widget here, and I will call this onboarding screen. Okay, now we can go back to our router and make sure this is imported correctly. All right, so it's not the name of the class. Let's change this properly. I think it's onboarding screen. All right, this is correct. So we just need to change it here. So let's make this one opaque. Let's capitalize this one. and awesome. So now we have our onboarding. Okay, so now we'll go back to our splash screen. So what I'm going to do here now is more like to check after like a duration 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to navigate the user straight into the screen. So I will have a method here, and I will call that method like small, like it's going to be a navigate method inside our init state. Okay, so we have the navigate, and we're going to import the method, right? So inside this method, what I'm going to do now is to add a delay of 3 seconds, right? Then after that 3 seconds, it's going to take the user into the application, right? But so we have this, let's say future the delayed, right? Okay, so we are going to say context.goal, and we have onboarding. Cool. So this works. You can do a hot restart now, and you will notice that this splash screen will no longer stay. It will move to the next screen, right? This is it. This is the onboarding screen. So now we need to go back to the onboarding screen and then build out the UI and make it look cool. So I'm going back to our screen here. So instead of having this placeholder, we are going to have a scaffold, right? And inside this scaffold, we are going to build the body, the container, and everything that is needed. So follow me as I do this. So we have our body, and I'm going to use a container for this. Okay, and let me give it a color. So I want you to take the color like the scaffold background color. Okay, so let's say scaffold background color. Remember in our previous meeting, we actually we were able to set the team data, right? So let's say instead of symmetric, so I want to give a different padding to the top and the bottom, which is going to be 100, and the left and the right is going to be 50. Okay, so things changed, yeah. So you can see a new UI. Then now we have our child and column, because this is going to have a page view, so users will be able to swipe between between the boarding screens, right? So if you look up the demo link that is in the description below, you will see how the app works when you have not created an account, okay, or when you're coming in for the first time. So what I'm going to do here now, we have the first one is going to be the image view, right? Then secondly, we are going to have the indicator, right? Then we are going to have the title, and finally we are going to have the button, right? Okay, cool. The 2 buttons to sign in as with Google, or sign in as the other one. So let's have a page view here, but we need to wrap it with an expanded widget. Okay, so we have the expanded widget, and then we have the page view. Okay, and inside here we are going to create the change, what happens when user changes. Okay, we are going to save that one for now because we are going to create our providers later. So here we have our children. It's going to be list of children, so I want it to just have like at least 3 datas for now. Okay, just dummy datas. We are going to update all this later on. Okay, so let's have our image, or for now let me just use icons. Okay, let me just use icon.home, and yeah, I can make the color to be white. Okay, so save it for now. You're going to see our little boy showing here. Okay, so this is not all, we are still coming to it. So now we have saved that one, and now I'm going to create the indicator, and you're going to see how it's going to look. So we have our indicator here, which is going to have a padding first. Okay, and the padding is going to have an edge insets. Okay, dots, let's say only, I want it to have like stay on the top. Okay, not just give that guy on the top. Then save that, and we are going to have, I think you need to remove this const, we may not need it. Then we have our child, and it's going to be a role. We have our column, right? And we have generate 3, same thing with the count of the images that we want to show in the page view, right? So here I'm going to return a cycle avatar, and give it a radius of, let's say 3, and a background color. For now, let me just say white for everything, right? Because we are going to create the index later, but let's just leave it like this for now. So you can see how it's showing, but it's looking so far. So I'm going to wrap this guy with a padding to just make it look a little bit good, and the padding is going to be 4 for now because I want some space in between them. You can see how it's taking shape. Okay, so that is it. I want to also move it to the center, so I will need to add main axis alignment that says main axis dot center. Cool. All right, so moving on now, I'm going to create the test. Okay, so the test is going to be like the title, right? So I'm going to have a, let's say, a test widget. Okay, and we have to say hello, right? More like the first string. Make sure you separate this with comma. So we have the first string, and I'm going to have a style for this. Let's say test style, and color of white, and font weight, and I'm going to make this bold. Okay, and you can also add a font size to just make it look pretty. Cool. We have the hello there, but as you can see, it's like close to the indicator. So what I'm going to do here is to wrap this guy with a padding, and I'm going to give it a symmetric kind of stuff, and vertical is going to be 30. Okay, save it up. You can see now there's space in between. So cool. Moving on, we have our test widget, right? And I'm going to set test align, because when those strings are plenty, so let's say you do multiplied by 20, right? Let's say you multiply the string by 20, you're going to see that it's not really in the center, right? Okay, you know, in Flutter you can actually, you can multiply a string to have meaning instead of having Lauren M. test, right? I think you just learned one. So we are going to have a test align and say test align dot center to centralize it. Awesome. Cool. Everything is now sitting pretty, right? So the next thing we are going to do now is to build out our button, so users will be able to do something, right? But for this screen, I want to add a Google button and Apple button, right? But I told you in this tutorial I'm not going to handle Apple authentication, so you can just go and look it up. That's more like your own task to learn based on what I've done with Google. Okay, so it's still like a straightforward process. It's not really something that's much difficult. Okay, so here we have our test button, and I'm going to give it a style and everything. So here I'm going to create a test button first. Okay, we have unpressed, and separate this with comma, and we have our test, and I will say Google. Okay, save it. You can see our icon is showing pretty, and so I can give it a style, right? Or okay, let's say I want to give the button a style instead. So let's say style, and we have our button style. All right, so inside here now we can say background color, and I will say material state property dot all, and I'm going to give it to white. Okay, and then we also have our shape. I want to give it like make it radius, but let me save this one first so that you will see the change that we did. Okay, it's looking nice, and this one is really the radius is too much, so I'm going to shape it a little bit, something, let's say 10. So I will say material state property also, right, dot all. I'm going to add a rounded rectangular border, and I'll give it a border radius to say border radius dot all, or let's say circular. Okay, and this is going to be 10, and save it. You can see now it's now a little bit the rounded corner is not too much now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to add a side, because I want the side to have white. So let's say side, and it's going to be you will know why I'm doing this. So border side color or white. All right, save it. Okay, it's not really showing anything, so let me style this one here. So I'm going to add a style and say color test style color dot black. Cool. Okay, I think it's now sitting pretty. We have a nice looking stuff, but remember we wanted this to be 2. Assuming you wanted Google alone, you can just have the icon there, like to just sign in with Google, right? So but I want something else, so I'm going to wrap this guy. I'm definitely going to duplicate it, right? I'm going to duplicate it, and also we have 2 things there. Okay, so for me to achieve that, I will need to copy this, right? So that I will save it to the clipboard and wrap this guy with a role, and inside this role I'm going to add another one here. Okay, So now we have our Apple and Google. Okay, so to also make it to put some spacing between them, I'm just going to set this guy to have a width. Okay, remember we added this width in our extension, so we have a width. Now it's properly positioned. Okay, so I want it to expand right, like let it expand everywhere. So I'm going to add this guy, like create a main axis alignment dot space evenly. Okay, save it. Yeah, it's looking pretty. So we have a nice looking app, and yeah, everything is cool. Let me see, try one more thing. Let's see if this thing can be bigger, wider than this. So let me give this a width of, let's say, material corridor of contest. Okay, that's still the same thing. So yeah, let's just leave it as it is. Cool. So now we have everything that we need. We have the buttons, we have the text, we have the carousel, like the page view. We also have the indicator, but right now you can see it's not working as expected, right? So what I need to do now is to go to our state provider. Okay, and now I'm going to create an index for it, how we want it to look. Okay, so let's go to our provider here. I'm going to create a getter and a setter. So let's say we have an initial variable, and we are going to give it the value of 0. And here we are going to have a getter that says index, right? And then we are going to get a setter to just set the index, right? We can call it set index. Okay, and here the index is going to be an int also, and we can now call this initial variable. We are going to change the value to the index. So I'm going to change this guy to value so that there will not be any conflict. Okay, now you can call notify listeners. Okay, cool. So now that we have this in place, okay, we need to because we already registered this onboarding provider, right? So I'm going to go back to our UI, okay, and wrap this guy here, this one, with a consumer widget. Okay, so let's scroll down here and get our stream builder. We have our onboarding provider. Change this guy to a consumer, remove this, and now we have what is called state, boarding state, and then you have your child. But if you're not using it, you can just put an underscore there. Cool. So now we have that guy in place. So what I can do next now is, on change of this page view, what I'm going to do is to call the onboarding state. Onboarding state. Okay, I think it's boarding state. Okay, boarding state dot set index equal to the value. All right. Then when we are changing the views, right? Let's say for the indicator color now. So what we are going to do here now is just more like to check if we are going to check here. I think yeah, we have our indicator here, which is the color. So I can say state.index if boarding state all right, this is a little bit confusing. Where's the name? Okay, if boarding state, oh, we have the const here, no wonder. So we have boarding state.index, right? If is equal to this index, okay, we are going to return white, else we are going to return the gray color, right? Save it up. You can see now these two are fainted and we have our white. So if you swipe, you can see how it's moving smoothly. Cool. So now that we have that, we need to show a nice string, okay? And also our text need to change to while we are swiping. So to do that, I'm going to go over to our provider, and then I'm going to add, I'm going to create a model for it, okay? So, and also I'm going to create, I think I already have this thing in place, so I'll just grab it where I have it. So inside the onboarding, I'm going to just design the model the way you want, okay? So we have our data model, right? So if you look at this now, we have our onboarding data model, we have the image part model, which is an image, and we have the title for the user to pass. So this title represents this guy here. This image part represents this one. So if you notice here now, I have a boolean inside the image part model that takes the image part and also is assets. So because users might decide to, like, you are building your app now, you want the model to, you want the onboarding to have assets, you also want it to have to come from the internet, whichever way you want it. You want to pass a URL, you want to pass an asset image. This will also work, right, by setting this value to false or true depending on how you want it to be. Cool. So now moving on to our model, our state provider, sorry, we are going to create our final onboarding data here. Okay, and there's going to be a list of onboarding data model. So we have our onboarding data model. Cool. We have the image. The image, if you notice, is actually an image path provider, image path model, sorry. So here you can pass the image path and also a flag that says if it's asset or not. All right, cool. Then we can, because we want it to be 3, right, you can actually duplicate it depending on how many you want, maybe 4, 5, 6, whichever amount. So here we have the image part, it goes here, right? Then we have the flag is assets. So because all our files are already inside here, image 1, image 2, and image 3. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use set is asset to true, okay? So it's actually an asset image, okay? So here now I'm going to set the path, which is asset slash image 1, right? .jpg, right? And the title is just going to be view daily 4K wallpapers. Cool. So now we have this guy in place. I can now duplicate. All right, so we have everything that is needed, or to change wallpaper every minute. Cool. So now I can now close this provider, okay? Close our model as well, then go back to our UI where I'll be doing all other magics. So right here, I'm going to set the list of this guy. So it's no longer going to be 3 again. It's going to be state, I think, onboarding model, onboarding state, right? Dot onboarding data dot length. Okay, then we have the data, which is going to be data equal to boarding state dot onboarding data dot index, right? So this guy now, it's no longer going to be an icon but rather an image, and that image we're going to check if it's assets, then return asset image. If it's network, return network image. Cool. So you can see here we have it in place, then we'll return the path. Okay, then if we save it, you can see now it's taking shape. You can see how our image is showing perfectly, right? And everything is looking great. So here we can do the same thing by setting this onboarding length, okay, and by putting it here, okay, to be 3 as well, just as it is in the other one. So we can now save it, okay? So whenever the index is, it's going to change correctly. Cool. Now let's do the other one for the test string, okay? So the test string is just going to be state.onboarding data. They will pass the index.title to actually get the string, okay? So this is going to be onboarding model, onboarding state, okay. Supposed to be boarding state, right? And this, cool. So you can see how it's looking now. So if you notice in the demo app, it has some kind of cool transition, right? So to do that kind of transition, we are going to be using what is called, I think we can use animated switcher, and we can add a transition builder and a duration, so it will just give it that cool effect. And for that, we also need to set the key for this our test. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to wrap this guy, okay, with a transition builder. I think we cannot really get it here. So what I'm going to do is to use builder for a start, okay. So this builder, I'm going to change this guy to animated switcher, okay. And this builder is going to be changed to a transition builder, and the transition builder takes the widget and an animation, right? So I'm going to pass here a widget that says child and animation, okay, which is a double, and we'll pass the animation here, okay. This is not supposed to be there. Okay, so here now something else is missing, which is the duration. You can see a name parameter is missing, so we add duration, and I'm going to add a duration of 1 second. Okay, so this might throw some error because as you can see now our test is not showing, right? It's not showing because of what we had here. So what I'm going to do is to add a key to our test widget, okay, to make it unique. So inside that key, I'm going to add something called the value key, okay? And here we have the boarding. Nope, it's not supposed to be there. Just below this, okay? It needs to be unique, right? So we are just going to send the key, which is the title, because they are of different types. That will make it unique, right? So just add it here, save it, and for some reason we are still not seeing what we need. All right, transition builder, we are returning this, which is not supposed to. Okay, my bad. So we are not supposed to return a test widget inside transition builder. Rather, this has a child. After, like the animated switcher has a child, so inside that child we can now pass our widget to be shown. Okay, and inside here we can now return the kind of transition we want. So in this case I want to use a slide transition, and I'm going to set the position, which is going to be a twine. I already have that, so we can just grab it, okay, instead of like, you know, doing everything from scratch again. So we have a position, okay. We have a position, it begins from the top, and you can see the offset X and Y. We also have where it's going to end as well. So, and we are passing the animation. So if you hover, you can see how it's moving smoothly, and just like that. So this is it. We have our onboarding in place, and everything is cool and it's working as expected. So in the next section, we are going to complete the authentication flow, and also from the authentication flow, we're going to take the user to the home page, and right there, and that is going to be Google authentication. And then in our splash screen, we are going to check if the user is null or not, and then take them to the root screen or the onboarding screen, depending whether they are registered or not. All right guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.